my presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's fine.
So obviously you also hear me, so I can start now.
Yes,
Okay, my
please
name
do
is
that.
Carlsson, and I am the former chairman of the Map Commission until last summer, and I am a professional map maker as my profession, together with a professional map printer. I have printed maps now for more than 20, almost 25 years. And our company is the biggest company for map printing, at least in Sweden. So some experience about these topics I want to talk about today, I hopefully have. Okay. I will try to cover these topics. I will talk about the first year with the printer certification process. I will talk about some problems about the maps and also the tracks that occurred in European Championship in Estonia. I will talk about some problems about the maps and also the tracks in World Cup 1 in Borås, Sweden. It was only sprint. There have been some questions and problems during the last years about the quality of the paper that the maps are printed on, and also the plastic bags. I will try to explain how these problems can be solved. I will talk about the map control carried out by the Map Commission. I will talk about the difference of our control or map checking and the map checking that shall be done by the event advisor. I will mention some small changes in the map specifications. It's very little, but can be interesting. And finally, I tried to also cover some tips or information how to correctly handle your OCAD files in the printing process so you will have the correct result. And this will take 1.5 hours, at least in the program. We will see. Okay. We start about the certification of printing suppliers. Now there is some sort of noise. Okay. This certification process was in the beginning, let's say like this. Why has this process been founded? It goes back really to World Championship in Sweden 2016, where the colors didn't attach really to the paper. There was some problems also, I think, 2018 in the World Championship. We have the problems in China with that. Obviously, the maps were spread out to some competitors or some leaders. We don't know for sure, but it was quite obvious. And there was also some other problems at other competitions, both with the printing quality, but also with the problem that the map secret was not 100% secured. So the council gave Map Commission a task, fix some kind of certification of printing suppliers that can assure to print good enough maps, and also that the print supplier shall assure that the secret is kept. So we sent out in early 2020 a letter to all federations about this, and we asked the federations to send in addresses to printing companies that they thought could match the standard that we requested. And during 2020, it must be 2020, I can't remember now, we got a hell of a lot of maps from different printing companies around the world. We send out to these printing companies a special map, one forest map and one sprint map, so everyone shall print the same map. Just to be sure that we can there will be a fair judgment of the quality. And we got, I think, around 40 answers from different printing companies. And in their answer, they should also describe their security system, how they handle files and waste paper and so on. And out of this came this list that you can see on the screen. This is the companies that finally passed the certification process. And you can see that after this list was made, I took this list from the Map Commission website. There is 2 more companies that have been accepted or yeah. And it's Aston Fischer from Switzerland. They have produced a very good offset printed map, and Grafisk Forum in Denmark, they printed the World Championship this summer. They finally also been approved. And down on the same page, you can see which competitions that should have or should have had certified printing companies for printing their maps. And in the end, it didn't end up that way, but yeah, more about this later. So that is the story about it. And our goal with this was to find we want to find the printing companies that could produce the best maps, not good enough really, but because we thought that this is very few competitions and it's very important competitions, and therefore the maps should be as good as possible due to the printing quality. Okay. But some problems occurred, of course. First, even that we got 40 answers, some countries did not send in any reply at all. And it's nothing to do about it. I think that in some cases we send out a second mail to the federation and reminded them about this question, but still no answer. Yes, and many printing companies did not read the instructions that is presented on the IOF webpage on the mapping section, how to print maps. There was many different ideas how to print map, how to handle color orders, or yeah, different which paper to be used and so on. Obviously they did their homework before they send in the maps. We didn't get any questions really from printing companies before they send in. I didn't think anyone sent any questions, because they thought that they could print orienteering maps, but in the end not everyone was so very skilled in that. Then we have some problems with some countries. They told us that, okay, we are very good in printing maps, but we don't want to follow the IOF instructions because we know better. And yes, perhaps they know better. There is, of course, no absolutely 100% right or wrong way to print a map. It can be made in many different ways, but after very long discussions and very many test prints within the Map Commission, we finally decided to have one way of printing the maps. Yes, to be sure that all maps presented to the competitors in the very important competitions should look the same. And we tried to find a way to print maps that was the easiest one to achieve. That you don't need any fancy software or very expensive machines and so on. So we have been tough on this, that if you want to be certified, you have to follow the instructions. Even that perhaps you have found out another way to do it that is also, the result is quite good, or yeah, but still it doesn't look the same. But there have been some clashes and some quite hard discussions sometimes about this. There have also been some, and this was the most important problem really, that you can say like this, that everyone, all countries, they have seen their own maps printed, and they have not seen, not so very often, maps from other countries. So every country or every printer thought that their maps was good enough. But when we got all the maps sent in to Map Commission, and we could put all the maps together on a very big table, it was obvious that the quality was very much varying. Some maps really good, but many maps was not good at all. There was a huge variation of quality. But if you go back to the printers or the countries that set in the maps that was not so very good, they didn't understand that, because they said it's good enough, it's the best we can do, nobody has complained. Okay, but it's because you have not seen what you can achieve in laser printing. And this has been tough to explain, and it's also one of the reasons that very few companies in the end was certified. That even big orienteering countries, I will not mention anyone here, but they thought that we print very good maps. But when we compared their maps with the best ones, the difference in quality was enormous, really. So this must be an ongoing process to get to level this in more countries, to be more the same. And perhaps, as you can understand, that this has taken a lot of efforts and times from the Map Commission, this process. It's many hours has been spent on this, checking all these maps, writing all the protocols, sending back to the printers, answering their questions why they were not approved, and so on. And in the end, we can say that we think that this process has taken too much time or too much effort from the Map Commission. So for the coming years, we have to change the process to make it more easy for us. Otherwise, it will not work.
Christer, sorry to interrupt you, but Sixten Silt from Estonia asking a question. Would you clarify, are you talking about the FootO maps only now, or also the ski orienteering and NDBO maps?
Only the FootO. Only the FootO.
Thank you.
I will clarify this, that in this first stage, the task for the map commission was only to check the FootO maps, because they are the most demanding. It's much more difficult to make mistakes while printing mountain bike orienteering maps or ski orienteering maps, because there are less details, the lines are thicker. Yeah. Of course, you can make mistakes there as well, but it's much more complex to print foot orienteering maps. Okay, that's what's the problems with the certification on our side. But there was also some problems with the events, or how to call it. In some cases this year, a certified printer has printed the maps, but in the end, why, I don't know, or map commission doesn't know, but it was not printed on the same paper as was used during the certification process. Maps was printed on on paper with much lower quality, and yeah, that is very important to print maps on high quality paper. There have also been some competitions that the maps was not printed in the same technique as in the certification process. The printer sent in maps correctly printed due to the IOF instructions, but when we saw the maps from the competition, it was made another way. And I can say that this printing certification process has been used in Sweden for many years, and this happens all the time, that it is sent in very good maps to the federation, but if you are looking at the competition, then it is printed much easier way, and that's a big problem. That was one problem. The other problem is that the organizers didn't want to use a certified printer. We can understand that organizers, as you saw on the list, not every country was covered by certified printing companies, and the organizers want to use their local printer, or the printer that they perhaps have a contract with. We can understand that, but in the end, we have a task from the council to follow, and yeah, there was a clash, and it was a long process with World Championship in Denmark, but in the end they fixed their printing company, so there it was fixed. But yes, we have this, and that can be this. I must tell you in blank that in Portugal, the European Championship there was a long discussion with the Portuguese organizers, but in the end they didn't send in any maps for certification, and we have not seen the maps, so we don't have any idea how they looked. But perhaps they were good because nobody has complained, but they didn't follow the process. And this is also a problem then, and this is more general. It also goes back to the map control process or checking process, that in the end map commissions never seen the final maps used in the competition. So we don't have any, we cannot see the result of this certification process, because we don't see the final printed maps. So we cannot send any, how to say, result to the printing companies as well. did you fix this in the end? Because nobody has sent us the maps. And in some paper somewhere it says that maps from high level events shall be sent to the map commission for evaluation afterwards, but we have not seen any maps during the last 3 or 4 years from any competition. It's not sent to us. And you can summarize this that our opinion is that there's been a low acceptance for this process in general from both organizers and from senior event advisors. Many organizers and event advisors has complained about this process, and yes, but we have only tried to do our best, and we have tried to follow the task we got from the council. That was quite tough, but yeah, it was not so very well accepted by the other parts really. So we're a little bit sad about that. So for the future, we have asked the council that shall we continue with this? The answer was yes, as we have understood it. And then we have to try to make it less hard for us to fix this. So our idea about this is that the companies that are already certified during the period 21-22, they only send in an example of a competition map from 2022, so we can see that they still are printing in the same quality as 2 years ago. And new candidates will only be accepted from the countries that will organize high-level events during the coming 2 years. Because the certification will be valid for 23 and 24. So it's it's also only requested for these high-level events mentioned in the paper I showed you before. So it's no idea for other countries to send in, because you will not have any competitions that requires certified printed maps. But the main reason is because, of course, that we want to minimize our work about this checking this map, because it takes very long time. And for the countries that now will organize competitions 23 and 24, if you contact the chairman of the map commission, or you can contact me as well by mail after the holidays now in January, we will send you, or the printing companies that perhaps contact us, we will send you or them the new maps that should be printed. This not the same as last time. We will have 2 new maps, one forest map and one sprint map. And also there is a questionnaire to answer about the security of the printing process and so on. And during then February and March, we hope to look at these maps and hopefully will certify printing companies for each country that will organize high-level events during the coming 2 years. So far about the certification process.
Christer, before we leave the certification process, we have one comment that it would be useful for the organizers to see the list of those 25 to 30 printing companies who applied but didn't receive IOF certification. Would that be possible?
For the coming years, yes. Yes. For the last years, 21, 22, we decided to keep that list secret because it can be, we thought it could be bad marketing for the companies that applied but didn't got approved. I think it's quite common when you certify some companies in any way that you only present the result for the companies that pass the test. But we can. I don't want to publish it totally in the open, really. But we can send back to the federations informations about companies that didn't pass the test, and also why, because every company has got a result from the test where we have specified what was good and what was not good enough.
Okay, that clarifies it. Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions about this?
No, currently not.
Okay. So now we fly over to Estonia. This is one of the questions that was given to map commissions before this seminar. Please say something about the map problems in Estonia. And here it is like this, that nobody on the map commissions was on site, and we have not seen the maps of the competition. But as we as we think, at least, this was the problem that I show you on the screen now. The forbidden area, the river, and there was also some fence somewhere I've heard about. And we discussed this in the last meeting with the map commission, and we realized that it was nothing wrong with the map. We don't know, of course, if the map, how it looks on the ground, but looking at the printed map or the map we saw on the internet after the competition, it's no problem with the map. The problem that occurred was the use of the course setting symbols, and that obviously there was some misunderstanding about the rules. Because it's correctly, there is a river and there is a black line along the river, and this shows that the map maker thinks that the river is uncrossable. He will not cross it, at least, because it's too high water, it's too much streaming water. But it's the same if there was a problem with some fence somewhere, that the map maker thinks that the fence is uncrossable one way or another. But the rules doesn't say that you are forbidden to cross an uncrossable fence or an uncrossable river. It's up to the runner. And as we understand, the problem here was that the course setter thought that placing the forbidden area like this, he has closed that way. It was not possible to run over the bridge and pass the forbidden area along the river. But of course it was okay, because it was okay to walk or run in the river. But from our point of view, the map is okay. Perhaps it wasn't okay because there was very dry summer in Estonia, that there was almost no water in the river. But that the map maker couldn't know that there will be no water in the river during the summer when he made the map in the winter. It was made in the winter or in the early spring. So it's a course setter's problem, this, and not the map. It's not a map problem. But it shows really a problem that we have discussed. And it's the problem with the course setting symbols, or the violet symbols, because they are defined in the map specification, but when you make a map check, you never see the courses, so you can never see how the course setting symbols are used. So perhaps the course setting symbols and all the instructions about them should not be in the map specification. It should be, perhaps the IOF should present the course setting specification with instructions how to use this. Because as I will show you on my next example, the knowledge by the course setters and also perhaps by the event advisors about how to use these symbols is sometimes not good enough.
Christer, these both things, the river and the fence, will be also covered in David Rosen's rules interpretation on Thursday evening.
Yes. Okay. So good. So I leave that. And we go to the next problem that I know much more about, and I can also say that I am a little bit responsible of the problems. There was a lot of complaints after the first World Cup stage in Borås in Sweden, and I've tried to cover as I understand the things that most people complained about. They complained about strange use of multiple line objects. I will show you later what that means. It was unclear or not correct drawing. It's not spelled right there, but you understand. Drawing of course setting symbols. And there was unclear borders of outer bound areas. And all these three is quite important things in sprint orienteering. So yes, that was quite big mistakes really. We take the first. And this is from the city map in Borås. And I will say before I continue that, as I say, I am a little bit responsible of this because I was the national map controller of this competition. And I was also the map commission map controller. But still this happened. And what we can learn about this is that you should never control a map that an old friend of yours had made, because I was not tough enough with the map maker, really. Of course, I had a lot of complaints, or not complaints, but opinions about the maps. But in the end, a lot of things was missed by me. So I take some responsibility for this. Well, the first picture is the river and the bridge. And there is a stone wall from the street down to the river. And of course there is also a fence along the river and along the bridge so that you don't fall into the river. And the map maker then, well, he was very convinced that I must show both the unpassable wall and the very low unpassable fence that are following the wall on the street level. So he drew it like this. This example here is very clear, but it was not the most, that this perhaps didn't cause any problems for the runners, but there was a lot of others like this in the map. That the runners saw a thick line, but this small, how to say, lines that shows a passable fence confused the runners. And this is not how it should be done. If there is a passable and an unpassable objects running along each other, it's enough to show the runner that there is an unpassable fence or an unpassable wall. You cannot pass here. That's the important for the runner. If there is a passable fence on top of it, it doesn't matter. It just confuses the runner and makes the map more difficult to read. And after the competition, several competitors sent in complaints to the organizers about that the map looked like this. So for the future, it's very important to think about it, that only draw the unpassable symbol. Don't bother about the other one, because there is a problem in sprint maps in general that we draw too much objects, and it makes the map very difficult to read. We must try to make it as simple as possible for the competitors. And on the lower picture, he has combined two passable line objects together. There is a retained wall and there is a fence on top of the retained wall. It's really the same as on the other picture, but the result is also here very confusing. And what he also has done is that the lines doesn't follow each other completely. The fence line is a little bit more to the north than the wall line, so the line is thicker. So here it was difficult to understand in the end if the line was a passable or impassable line. So this is absolutely not okay. This is a very big mistake that confused the runners very much. And if you look at the page, you can see more to the east. It starts with an unpassable fence and a passable wall. It's very confusing. So the first part of the line is really unpassable, and then it's passable. But it gets thinner and thinner the further to the west or to the left you go. And it's really not acceptable to draw it like that. You can also look at that lower picture. You can see there is very, very little. If I point, I can point. Do you see that I point here? Yes. This little green area is absolutely not following specification. There is a minimum size of an area symbol, and this is so small that in the end, in the printed maps, you absolutely don't see it. I can show you again now. I realize I can point on the screen that this was obvious some kind of unpassable object, and this is passable, or this is also passable, but this is thicker than this one. And in the printed map, it was impossible to see the difference between this. You can also see here, there's also overmapping. Here is an impassable vegetation. You are not allowed to pass here. And then it's enough to just have the thin line just following the green area just to show where the edge is. Here is drawn passable passable wall, but it isn't passable because you are not allowed to pass. So it's also overmapping. makes it now because this line is thicker, then the green is very thin. So in the end, in the printed map, it was almost impossible to see that it was green because it was so thin. And the dark green is very close to black. And what we can learn about this is that making sprint map is very, very complicated. It's very complicated. And in the end, it's much easier to make a forest map than a sprint map, because a small mistake here can cause very much problems for the runners. If you make a small mistake in a forest map, it doesn't matter because you just continue to the next object. To the next problem in Borås, and this is important to talk about. They created a lot of barriers using the course setting symbols, but they draw them very, very short and try to draw them exactly to the out of bound area. But in the printed map, in scale 1 to 4000, this out of bound area that also doesn't have a borderline, it was not so very easy to see the difference between the yellow and the olive green here. So some competitors thought that here was a gap. So we tried to pass here. But of course it was not allowed because here is some very small garden. So here you can say that they have used this very thick olive violet line wrong to make sure that no mistakes can be made. They should have made it longer, at least into the house and also here. It doesn't matter if you draw it longer, because you have to see it, because here it's quite obvious, but you see it on the printed map. It was very, very hard to see. And it also caused some very much problems for the runners. And also this very small area of hatches. We ask us if this is this necessary? Because it just confuses the map reading. Is it better just to draw the line? Because it doesn't matter if it's allowed or not on the back side, because it's not allowed to pass the solid line. And we made some test print and took away the hatches and make these lines longer, and then the view of the map was much clearer. So I think that's something you can learn for the future. Draw the lines longer and skip the hatches if you have such small areas. And this was hard to read, even that they used the wrong look of the hatches, because in the latest map specification we had changed the look of the hatches. The lines are thinner and the distances between the lines are bigger, because we want to assure that you can, if you have a big forbidden area, that you can read the map under the forbidden area, so you can see what's really forbidden. But sometimes when you use the old ones, it totally covers the picture of the map, so you cannot see if there is a house or if there is a field or something. So we have also decided, or we have proposed, that if you have very small forbidden areas, you can use the 50% violet area symbol instead. Because if you not in this case, but if you have a very small forbidden area, both in sprint and in forest map, it's very difficult to see the edges of the area using the hatches. So use the 50% violet instead. It's much more clearer. But this was the main problem here. that the lines were too short. And the problem was also that, as you see here, in the map specification, it says that an olive green area in sprint must be followed by a black line showing the exact border of the forbidden area. And this is not used here. But this is like this. It looks like this. It's the same place. And this is typical Sweden, Norway, Finland, perhaps North America, that the gardens doesn't have a border. We don't put up fences or walls along our borders of our gardens. It just fades out in the forest. So here, like here, was inside here was olive green, and this was white or yellow. Because somewhere here is the border where the owner of this house owns the land, but you cannot see it on the ground. And we had a very long discussion, me and the map maker, about this. What to do about it, because we said, like, if you draw a line, the runner will think that he can find the line on the ground, but there is nothing. But still, we couldn't let the runners run all the way into the houses, because it is private land, and here is some branches or something that they have planted. Or some places they cut the grass with the machine. Sometimes they cut 5 meters out, next time 3 meters, and next time 10 meters. It depends on how much time or how high the grass is, or how much time you have. It varies all the time. And the conclusion about this is that this area was not suitable for sprint orienteering. And I remember I was there with the first startup meeting with the course setters, with the map maker. Unfortunately, the senior event advisor was not there because it was COVID time. And we walked around this area, and the course setter, he was very excited about this area because it's a very nice area, and they got some architectural prize for this area because it was it's very special. But I and some other guys said that, is this really suitable for sprint orienteering? And we discussed these problems even at the first meeting, that can we really use this? How should we draw this? Unspecified gardens and so on. But yeah, the organizers has already decided that this was a very special area that they want to show the runners. But in the end, I think everyone agreed that this area was not suitable for sprint orienteering. So I just send you this message. Not every place is good for sprint orienteering. You must make sure that there will be no uncertainties about these things, because in this case, I think the map maker didn't make anything wrong. He did his best, and we discussed, and I couldn't find out other way to do it. But in the end, the result was not good, because for the runner it was very confusing. So once again, a good sprint orienteering area is where the borders are very clear. There should be no uncertainties about where you're not are allowed to run or not. And this, of course, it's a problem. I mean, in Central Europe, you don't have this problem, I think, because there is fences and walls around every garden. But in the Nordic countries, we have this problem. So perhaps it's better to have the sprint in more build-up areas than this. Is there any other issues or problems that occurred in these two competitions that I have not covered?
Christer, Ivar Malen commented that the outline of the relevant private gardens they were taped.
Okay. But not where Hoopman tried to run between the between the forbidden area and the house. It was not taped. But
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
not sure. I was not there during the competition, so.
Yeah, and I think that you made your point, and we don't need to go into that discussion right now.
Okay. So now we jump again to something totally different. As I said before, there has been some problems really during the last 5-6 years at least, with that the maps are not they're not good enough for running. We had this problem with the colors tearing off in Sweden. We have plastic bags that was falling apart in Czech Republic last year. We have the same problem, as I understand, in Estonia. We have had problems with so-called plastic paper that doesn't work when it starts to rain or when it's muddy. So there, obviously, during the last years, we have not covered this problems good enough. First, about paper and printing and so on. I mean, if you go back 20 years or something, this was nothing that an organizer really thought about, because you draw a map and you gave it to a professional printing company and they printed the maps. Of course, they knew exactly what to do. They knew that the offset printed maps must dry, and they knew what paper to use and so on. But now there's been such big change. First, the graphical industry everywhere has almost fallen apart. In Sweden, it's like that 90% of all printing companies that was working 20 years ago is gone one way or another. They are closed down or bankrupt. Only the biggest companies are still working in Sweden, and the big companies, they don't know how to print maps. They can only print newspapers or advertising material or something like that. No books or anything are printed in this country anymore. And I think it's the same in many countries. And also, of course, that we now have the possibility to print our maps ourselves by laser. So the printing process has gone from the professional people to the amateurs. And of course, this has caused a lot of problems. Of course, it's fantastic. You can print your own maps. You can wait until last 48 hours to print the map, and you can have control over the map, the process of printing. But we must understand that it isn't easy to print maps. The whole printing process is not so easy. If you want to have a perfect result, it demands knowledge. And okay, we have this problem with the plastic bags. And that is, of course, not a problem of the printing industries. It's another problem. I think both in Estonia, that also, I think it was a problem with the plastic bag, but definitely in Czech Republic, it was like, it was a terrible weather. It was very demanding terrain with a lot of green areas. And as I know in Czech, they use the same type of plastic bags that they have used for many years. But obviously, it was not good enough for a world championship in heavy rain, in demanding terrain. And we have a look at the plastic bags that was used, and they were very thin, and it was made of very, how to say, hard plastic. A plastic material that cracks very easy. If you get a little hole in it, it cracks and you get a much bigger hole. The plastic bags were following the IOF requirements, that they were sealed, that no water could come in the opening where you have put in the maps. It was sealed like an envelope. But it doesn't help if the plastic bag tears apart. If you scratch your map to a tree branch or something, or you smack it into a boulder or something, you get a big hole in it. So the problem there was that the bags was too thin, and it was the plastic bag, a good plastic bag for putting maps into, must be quite soft. It follows very easy if you fold the map. These plastic bags were very hard, and if you fold it, it cracks. So that was the problem there, that with the wrong material. So then we have had problems that the bags are not sealed. So if it's raining, the water went into the opening. But that is really because there is in the regulation that says for IOF event, the plastic bags shall be sealed. The problem is perhaps if you look at the market now, if you want to buy plastic bags, from the open market that you can seal, only the hard and thin is to found on the market. If you want to buy plastic bags that are thicker and softer and much better to fold, you cannot find them on the open market for sealing. You have to fix the sealing by hand, by using an iron or something. So then perhaps many of you think that we skip that problem, we use plastic paper instead. Well, that's a good idea. It's a really good idea, and very often it's also good for the environment, because plastic bag has two sides. It's two papers really, and the plastic map is only one paper. So you make the use of plastic the half amount if you use plastic bags. But unfortunately, I think that 90% of all so-called plastic paper that is used for map printing around the world is the brand Pretex. And Pretex is not plastic paper. It is normal paper that is mixed with plastic fibers. And Pretex is, if you put the Pretex paper or a map into water, it works quite good if you just put it into the water. But if you scratch it or try to tear it apart, it tears apart very easy. Just as easy as normal paper. And if you get some mud or some shit on the paper, on the map, you cannot, it affix on the paper. The map gets dirty and it gets very hard to read. And I mean, if you get mud on the plastic bag. It just tears away. If it's raining, five minutes later it's gone, but on Pretex it's still there. There have been a lot of complaints during the years about Pretex maps. As long as it's sunny, fine weather, dry forest, not so many thick areas, green areas, it's no problem with Pretex. But as soon as it starts to rain, or you get a lot of green areas or muddy surface that you can perhaps you fell or you put your hands into the dirt, the result is very bad. So from our point of view, we are very clear that Pretex is not waterproof paper, because in the specification we say that waterproof paper can be used for major events, but that is not Pretex. It must be real plastic paper. Unfortunately, these papers are more expensive, but the printing result on this plastic paper is much better than you print on Pretex. I will come back to some examples, I think, about waterproof papers. The next problem is, going back to print on normal paper, is that normal paper, or how to call it, is used. You go into your office and you take the normal office paper and you print your maps on this paper. 80 grams normal office paper. This paper is too thin. The surface is not smooth enough. And the printing result is terrible, really. Even if the paper is dry, because the surface is not smooth enough, all lines will be thicker because the color will tear out in all the small canals that you can find on a very cheap paper. And of course, if you get some water or some wet air into the plastic bag, the paper will very soon be totally destroyed. So that is of course not acceptable, but it's very often seen, really. There is some special color laser papers on the market, a little bit more expensive, but the result is much better. And the last mistake, and it's the mistake which was made in Sweden 2016, and it was a very odd situation because it was printed in a really printing company, but they printed the maps too late, and the colors that you use in offset printing, it must dry. It's like normal paint. It takes some time to dry. If a map comes out of the printing machine, if you put your thumb on it, you will get the map on your thumb if you put it on there for the first 5 minutes or something. It must dry. It must dry at least two days or something before you can use it in a plastic bag. Because if you put it in the plastic bag, the plastic bag surface and the map surface are scratching to each other, and the color will fill out. Perhaps the map feels dry if you're looking at the paper, but when you have it scratching to a plastic bag, something else will happen. So, how to fix these problems? Use real plastic papers. Here is some brands I just found out that I have used myself in our company. Teslin, Antios and Jupo. There is, of course, several others, because it's much depending on where you are on the world, in the world, really. I mean, Antius, for instance, is not to be found in Northern Europe. Teslin perhaps is not to be found in Southern Europe. I don't know. Yupo is Japanese. And there is some other Japanese brand as well that I don't remember now. But all these three and some others as well, they are 100% plastic, mostly polyethylene. So there is no paper in it, and there is no structure. It's totally flat or smooth, or how to call it. It's perfect to print on, and the result is better if you print on this paper than on normal paper, and not use Pretex for the IOF event. For the normal training in the club, of course you can use Pretex, but not if you want to have a top-notch event. You must use, if you are going to use plastic bags, you have to use soft, thick plastic bags. They should be made of polyethylene. It's called PE if you look at the specification. And we have found out that the minimum thickness of the plastic bag must be at least 0.07 millimeters. It can be found everywhere. I think you can order it from these factories that make plastic bags of any kind. They can make this from this specification. Because this very thin and hard plastic bags is obviously not good enough. And of course, seal the bags so no water can get in. And yes, for laser, use special color laser paper. There's a lot of brands around the world of this type of paper, but it shall be special color laser. Not laser paper and not color paper, special color laser paper, because it's also about that the colors of the laser printer must affix to the paper. And some color paper that is used for offset, it is too hard, so the toner that is melted into the paper, it doesn't go all the way into the paper, so that you have the same problem as with offset, that doesn't dry. The color will fell off. And as I said before, let offset maps dry at least 72 hours. Okay, it's 3 days. It's from my printing company. They say let it dry 3 days before you put it into plastic bags. Otherwise it can be a problem. Okay. So the map commission, map checking. It is very important that we can start like this and say that it also goes back to, as I know, 2016, that it was obvious that the map commission must check the maps before using the maps to ensure that the minimum dimensions and the size and looks of the symbols on the maps are following the actual specification. Because in the years before 2017, you got smaller and smaller green and yellow areas on the maps. You got more and more form lines. Map makers thought that some objects was too big, like the knoll or the well, or so they didn't have space for it. So it's very easy in OCAD to just make the symbols smaller, take them down 20% or 30% or something, or make the contours a little thinner to get place for more form lines or so on. So that we understood that it's important to check the maps that they are theoretically following the specification. We are not how it looks in the forest or in the city. It's not up to the map commission, because we don't have the money, we don't have the manpower or anything to travel around the world and look at the maps on the spot. But we thought, and we still think, that it's important that we check that the maps are following the specification. And this is quite easy to check, of course. At least nowadays, you can just ask the computer how many small green areas can you find on the map that are smaller than the minimum size in the specification, and then you get a list of 264 or 4,300 or something like that. So once again, it's only theoretical what we do. We don't visit the forest or the city. Sorry. So a lot of questions has come into us. What do you actually check when you are going to check our maps? We don't check everything, because that is too much work. We have found some critical issues that we want to check, and this is what I have listed here. We check the minimum size of areas, and it's normally the yellow and the green areas on the map. So what I mean is small thickness and small clearings, because all map makers find a lot of this small green areas or small yellow areas on the map, but the specification says that the minimum size is 225 square meters, because if you make them smaller, you don't see it in the printed maps. It doesn't matter. So and this is the most common mistake we see on all maps, really. A hell of a lot of too small areas, yellow and green mostly. Normally, at least when I do map checking, I only check this. I don't check if you have any blue or brown or something. Too small areas. It doesn't matter. They are too few, and it doesn't matter really. It's the light green and light yellow areas that is the problem. So that is checked very, very carefully, because it makes the map much harder to read if there is a lot of these small areas that just make the impression of the map very buzzy. Next problem that is very often, at least in the Nordic countries, and perhaps if you like Czech Republic and in Australia, minimum length of line symbols, and this is the cliffs. The cliff on the map must be 9 meters long. It doesn't mean that the map in the that the cliff in the forest must be 9 meters long. But when you draw it on the map, it must be 9 meters. And the reason that it is 9 meters is that if you draw them shorter, they look like a boulder. It must be obvious for the user of the map that this is not a boulder. This is something that is stretched out. That is a cliff. So the minimum length is 9 meters. And this we check. And normally, at least in the Nordic countries, we find several hundreds of too small cliffs normally. Next thing we check is the correct size and shape of all symbols. And that is that nobody has make tricks about the size of the stone or the boulder or the contour lines and so on. And it's also very easy to check in OCAD, you just ask if there any differences between the standard size or shape and on the map, and the computer will answer you immediately to find out. I must say that during the last 2 years now, this has been much better. I think that map makers have found out that you are not allowed to do this. But when we started this, it was very common that too thin contour lines and too small nulls and too small wells and so on. But this is checked. We also check the use of form lines, because sometimes let's start with that the specification says that you are only allowed to have one form line between each contour. But sometimes excuse me. Sometimes you can find on some maps there are 3 and 4 levels of form lines between one contour, and then of course the map will be totally impossible to read. So we are quite tough with this. Only one form line between 2 contours. This has also been better during the last years now, but when we started this work, we could find really terrible examples of too much form lines. And when we check the combinations of symbols, then we mean that you are not allowed, for example, to combine green stripes with the green area. If you have a light green area or a middle green area, sometimes the map maker also thinks there is some branches lying on the ground that is also difficult to pass, and he also draws the lines, but that makes it totally impossible to read when you print the map. That's a typical forbidden combination. So that is also checked. It's not so very common, but if there is such forbidden combination on the map, sometimes it can really jeopardize the reading of the map totally. And finally, we check the overall graphic standard. We see that the digitalization of the map is good enough. That the contours are smooth, that they are connected to each other, that if you have a border along like a field, that the yellow color is going all the way out to the border. Such things are checked. But sometimes the digital standard of digitalization is not good enough, and we have to send the map back and say you have to look over this again. And this also means that we check that you have been aware of the minimum distance between objects of the same color. Like if you have a null and a contour, that you must have a white space between the null and the contour. And the specification, it says 0.15 millimeters. We can accept a little bit less perhaps, but it must be some white, because otherwise when you print the map, it will be the brown color will be connected to each other, and it will be very hard to read. The same like if you have a path going under a cliff or something, you must have a white space between the cliff and the path. All of this is checked, is this overall graphic standard. So this is what we're trying to cover in our map checking. So how it is meant to work then with this little process? We want to have the map files sent to us not later than 6 months before the event. And there is a list on the Map Commission webpage who in the Map Commission who is responsible for the map checking for each competition. So the best thing is that you send the map directly to that person, so there will be no delay. And also we think that perhaps it's better that the senior event advisor sends in the map than the organizer. Because sometimes it has been, we don't get any maps at all because it's been very, the organizer thinks that the senior event advisor will send in the map, and the senior event advisor thinks that the map maker will send in the map, and the map maker thinks that the organizer should send in the maps. So it's best, we think that it's best that the event advisor is responsible for securing that the map is sent to the Map Commission, not later than 6 months before competition. And as soon as we get the map, we will start the checking. Of course, we are not full-time working with this, so we say at least within a month you will get the result, and you will get some kind of protocol of the result from us. But hopefully it will take less than a month. I can just give an example, really. I got the maps now for the World Cup, the first stage in Norway, some weeks ago, and the map checking took me, I think, 3 minutes because I couldn't find everything was okay. All this automatic check that I made, the result was 0, everything, and then I should look at some form lines, and I couldn't find any bad examples of form lines, and the graphics. It was perfect. So they got the result back. I don't think that it took some hours to get the result back. That was, of course, not the usual way, but if the map is good enough, it's really good, you get the result very quick. Okay, when you get the protocol, the map maker must make the adjustment that we have pointed out that you must fix. And you send the map, the next generation of the map, back to the Map Commission, to the same person again, not later than 3 months before the event, for the next check. And then hopefully the Map Commission will say that now the map is good enough. This is how we want it to work. Problems. Of course there is problems. Map Commission don't get any maps at all. This is quite common. There has been some competitions. 2022 we didn't get any maps at all. If we get the maps, we get them too late. Sometimes we get the maps, we make the check, and no one is fixing anything. We can see after the competition that the maps looks exactly the same as the first maps we got, and I think never we get the final maps sent to the Map Commission, and also that we never see the printed maps again. Finally, we have to check on the internet to see how the maps finally looked. So yeah, we have addressed the council several times to ask what shall we do about this, because they say to us that you must do this, but in the end we cannot take the airplane and go to, I don't know, some remote country somewhere and physically take the maps. We must rely on that we get the maps and that the changes are made that we request. I'm running out of time. Yeah. Very quick about some changes here. And I talked about these two here. Out of bounds area, thinner and sparser. And if they are very small, use the 50% instead. And then there has been some questions to us about this, that you can stripe areas if you have a tunnel. And in the specification, it says you can stripe every area except a building. Because if you have a tunnel through a building, it's a canopy like this. But in our last meeting, we realized that sometimes there can be a tunnel under the bridge. I mean, a canopy is you can pass through the bridge, through the building. Normally, this is some kind of gate, but here is a tunnel that starts before the outside the building, goes under the building, and comes up on the other side of the building. You are below the basement. And then, of course, you can make the stripes to make it much more easy for the runner to understand that you can run on the lower level, under the street, under the building, and under the street again, and come up on the other side. So that's small changes that we have made. But I think that you can use this 50% is quite important, but we have seen a lot of examples that you use this symbol in two small areas, and in the end it doesn't look like anything. Perhaps it's only a hole or just some small lines. Okay, finally something about printing and color order. And this is important, and this goes back really to the printing certification, because this was the biggest mistake that printers around the world made. They don't know in which color order to put the course setting symbols. And they didn't know that it is different in sprint and than in the forest. So we look at the sprint, and it should look like this. The black 100% shall be above the course setting symbols. As you see here, you can see the thick black line through the line between control 14 and 15. And also here you can see the fence. But everything else, the counters, there's nothing blue here, but you can see even the green, forbidden green here is under the line, the violet line. So only the black 100% above the course setting symbols, the lines, the circles. But you can see the numbers shall be above everything. And if you are in build-up areas, you should also put this shadow behind the numbers to make the numbers more easy to see. Of course, as a course setter, you must be very careful where you put the numbers, so you don't interfere with any road choices. But this is important because in sprint, it's very complicated structure of the courses very often. It's very important to see which is the next control. And we have seen during the last years some very big problems in sprint competitions that it was almost impossible to see how the structure of the course setting of the course. Then going to the forest is much more different. Here you can see that, I hope at least you can see, that the course setting symbols are below black as in sprint, but also below the contours of the brown 100% and the blue 100%. You can see here that the small creek is above the course setting symbol. But the marsh is under, so it's only the below line symbols that is above. And here you can see the difference, that the numbers are on the same level as the circles and the lines. It's below black, brown, and yellow. Black, brown, and blue lines. And that's because in the forest it's much easier or common that the runner are missing the control. And then if you do like this, you will hide a lot of map symbols, like this cliff here. So therefore, it's very important that you put the numbers below exactly as the same as it is with the lines. So it really looks the same as when you are offset printing. This also gives that forest maps, it's okay, of course, to offset print the core setting. But for sprint, you cannot use offset printing because then the courses will look like this and the numbers will disappear in all the black areas. Therefore, sprint maps must be laser printed.
Christer, Daniel Leibgut makes a comment about the color order. That's an issue. That's not the issue of a printing company. They should print what they receive from the organizer, right?
Yes. Or you sometimes if you have a printing company that knows how to print orienteering maps, it's up to them. But I mean, it must be some combination of co-working between the printer and the organizer.
Yes.
But the responsibility is, of course, in the end, it's by the organizer or the course setter to get it correct. I just want to show you, because all of these color orders are defined in this document, printing and color definitions that are found on the Map Commission webpage. And here you can see there is a table. And it's so small, but if you look into it, you can see here is all the different colors and how they should be ordered in the different specifications. So here is like even mountain bike and ski is to be found here. And here is also the color shades, the original color shades defined in SMYK. So it's just to look at this, and here you can see that it's different between sprint and forest, and of course it's different between sprint, forest, and mountain bike and ski orienteering. But everything is covered in this table.
Two more questions. Is Map Commission going to update the print text test sheet with the latest changes in forest and sprint maps and distribute paper copies to federations? And then the other comment is, what is the reason for making the out-of-bound hatch parser and with 50% purple? I think it's very bad decision for the athletes. New parser hatch make us the course setter big issues last year as it not very distinct and you cannot use it for smaller areas. Even in your case, you make the whole road out of bounds with passages. It is not very distinct where the parser hatches.
Okay, two questions. We are or have already updated the print text sheet. It's in my computer here. I did the work some days ago. So it's updated and it will be printed after New Year. But it is very expensive for the IOF to send out a hell of a lot of copies to federations. So our idea is, but we have not discussed it with office yet, is that it shall be sent out after request to perhaps to Map Commission or to the office that federation or organizer wants to have some copies of the print text sheet, because last time I think we printed 7,000 pieces of print text sheet, and sent out to all federations. The biggest federations get the most, and yeah. But it took just some months before the first question came that federations has lost the copies and we want to have new ones. And the cost for sending out all these papers to all the federations, it was very expensive there, and as I understand it now, there is no budget for it. But it will be a new one, but how it will be distributed is not decided yet. Then about the hatches.
Okay.
Then about the hatches.
Just we're starting to be out of time, so
Yes.
make it brief. Thank you, Christer.
Yeah, very quick about the hatches. Is that, as said before, it has occurred that the runners don't see what's under the forbidden areas. There was some problem in some competition. There was a very big house, or some, I don't know, factory or something, and it was not to be seen because all of this yellow, all of this olive, violet, it was totally covering the picture below. So we must make it thinner, and we realized that when we were working with the mountain bike specification that we must make it thinner so you can see what's under. You are not allowed to go in, but you must, of course, as for your orientation, know what's behind that forbidden line. Therefore, we must make it thinner. I understand. We understand that in small areas it can make problem. But this problem, as we think, was even bigger. That you must see you must understand what's forbidden. Okay, that's our answer.
Okay, thanks, Christer. Do you have anything to add? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, then, Christer, if you are finished, then I would like to thank you. And then we have some minutes for questions, and I will ask Jaska to moderate this part.
Okay, there's just one thing from Daniel Wolf again about the hatches, that he thinks that it's much more important to see what's forbidden than what's under. And usually as an athlete, they don't care what's under there. But we see your point also, Christer, that we need to make it clear.
Mm. We have discussed it a lot, and we have looked at many examples of this problem, and we don't know if we have come out with the best solution, but it was our idea of the solution. And you can also say that it's very important that the hatches are, these lines are above all the map colors. You cannot put it under, because we have in Switzerland some years ago, there was a competition, there was a road, and the hatches was below the black, so the road, it looks like it was above the forbidden hatches. So some runners run on the road and were disqualified, of course, and they said, but the road was not, it was not forbidden. The hatches was not on this black road. Then we have to put it above, and then this problem occurred that everything disappeared.
Okay, thanks. Just another quick question about OCAD. Short question. Does OCAD follow up the IOF specs? Do you know what are their timetable on that?
I think that they are following quite quick, really. But we decided some small changes at our meeting 1 month ago in Map Commission, and this we have not informed the OCAD because it's not decided yet, because we want to have it decided in our meeting in Prague after New Year, and we also have to present our proposals to the FootO Commission and to the Mountain Bike Commission. But as soon as we get approved at that meeting, we will inform the OCAD, and normally it takes like some weeks before they present the new symbols in their update.
Okay, thanks, Christer. I see no other questions anymore, so thank you, Christer, and back to you, Aaron.
Okay.